How you guys doing? It's the MMA Parlay King coming at you with another episode on my channel, talking today about the Li Jingliang and Muslim Makhachev event coming up on the 16th. We got a pretty fun event. This is where we're going to stand out from the rest of the handicappers, and we're going to make the Sean Shelby team and the matchmakers look pretty bad, because this is one of those events where they kind of focus on making people enjoy the fights and, you know, see some surprises that they weren't expecting. And that's how their stocks go up. So we're not going to be in for those surprises, because that's how we lose money. Like as you noticed, you know, there's sometimes I'll give you some tips against trying to use the entire fight card towards the parlays in the betting system, which typically is consisting of like women fights or rookies or people at the latter part of their careers. Last week, for example, we had a fight we were talking about. We got all of them right except for the one that I said, if it doesn't go our way, it's going to turn into armbar from the underdog. 45 seconds into the fight, as she was losing the fight, mind you, the girl that we were betting on ends up getting armbarred by whatever that woman's name is. She's kind of not so new, but you don't see her being used in the events too often, because she's kind of like a one-trick pony. And they don't like to use people like that, because if they don't do what they're supposed to do, it can make for a boring fight. Like we even saw that in the Rose Namajunas fight when she lost her belt. It was a main event. The crowd was highly upset with not being entertained by it. So that's women's MMA. It's unpredictable, and they don't like to use them as often, so they're not as experienced sometimes. So we try to avoid those for good reason. All right, so back on track. We got the Muslim fight. He's going against a guy if you recall, we bet on him as an underdog against his really tough, durable opponent. A guy's known for sticking in his fights, hard to put away. Ponzinibbio got taken out in the first round by Li Jingliang. Although now he's coming off of a loss, he's not coming off a loss to just anybody. It's a guy, Khamzat Chimaev, another guy from the Dagestanis, you know, the mountains. Those guys are all good, all around, well-rounded martial artists. So that's the type of opponent we got today against Li Jingliang. They're both coming off of losses. One's at the latter part of his career, not what he used to be, but also if you look at his former his former opponents on his record, you'll notice that a lot of them are perfect style matchups, not very experienced, or just not your top of the end type of opponents, not your top shelf category elite level fighters. They're not the type of people that you got to really be training so hard for. And speaking of training hard, if you pay attention to what Jingliang has been saying in some of his interviews, he'll talk to you about, I'm really trying to come back from a loss. I'm training extra hard. It's hard to understand because he needs a translator. You'll notice he doesn't speak English, but he came to America about 3 months in advance before the fights. And this is a fight that's been in the makings for some time now. So he's been prepared for this opponent for longer than we've probably most people would have expected him to be. And in addition to that, he again traveled to America with his training camp, his trainers, and is preparing for this fight harder than his normal routine and training camp. So he's taking this very serious. He wants to make a name for himself again, or bounce back up, because this is a guy who doesn't have a big name, but in his older organizations, he was somebody that was very liked. They used to put him in very difficult matches. He's bounced back. He's even gone against similar style opponents that were really good at wrestling, and they've, he doesn't have the best takedown defense, and his opponent's pretty good at taking people down. He's lucky enough to have an opponent that doesn't actually try to use that in the fights. He's known to go in back and forth wars, but Jingliang is a guy who's shown us in the past, even in some of the most difficult, situations and positions from the bottom, he's bounced back and won fights. And even in the Ponzinibbio fight, people underestimated him, and he proved them wrong, and that's how he was a minus 460 when we put him in parlays. So, I'm sorry, a plus 460. So that means just him alone, when he beat Ponzinibbio before losing to Khamzat, we would have bet 100 on him by himself and returned about $500. Imagine him in some parlays. We probably made a killing thanks to this guy. So I'm siding with him again over here. And not just because I like the guy, but because the style matchup favors us here. You'll notice they do a lot of similar things. They like to gauge distance and try to throw punches without actually connecting. They tend to miss at times, but not on purpose. I mean, they're missing on purpose. They're not throwing punches to connect. So they're and they do it in two different ways though. You'll notice it looks the same to the blind eye. If you're not a fighter, you're not recognizing their setups and what they're doing, or know them from how they train. You'll notice when Muslim is doing that, he's trying to maneuver his opponents in a different direction and throw them off their game, which is a good thing at times. It depends on what type of other skill sets you carry. But since his skill sets require him to use, like he throws a lot of wide hooks, he uses a lot of movement, and it actually works against him. If his trainer was more wise to it, he would advise against that type of, and that's why you'll notice when he wins fights, they're drawn out. He either wins in the later ends of the rounds or by decision. Well, unlike Jingling, where he does his best to try to put his opponents away as soon as possible, but he also possesses those skill sets, but he does it in a different way. So when you see him doing the same thing, he's actually doing it to be also defensive, which is something that you'll notice when Muslim starts to get hit, his entire style changes up. You can even almost see him freezing up like a deer in headlights, which is dangerous against. That's how Ponzinibbio got put away by Lee. So that could work against him in this situation, and the odds are pretty good because again, the matchmakers, they know what they're doing this time around. They're trying to make exciting fights by putting two people together that will mesh well to put us some entertaining fights on, because these are not big names, as I mentioned. So we're siding with this guy. Again, he's prepared. He has to redeem himself from his loss. The record may indicate that our pick looks like the guy with the less experience, the more losses, but this is the guy we're going with. Good luck. And also I'm doing this back in full motion. We're gonna put all 13 fights in the mix now. I don't care if it's women's MMA or what it is. We're gonna put them all in there, and I'm gonna segregate them in tiers so you know who's the more dangerous and safer picks of the ones I'm gonna be releasing. And I'm also gonna actually throw in my own parlay tickets like I used to. So I'll be showing images prior to the events of how I would be doing it myself. So that's the advantage of being on the team. Good luck. Hope to see you making some money.